So since I'm in the middle of a move now and I gotta go through all my old stuff, came across these things I made a few years ago, and I just thought I'd just share it with y'all. So I was working in with centrifugal propulsion concepts, or it's more commonly referred to as inertial propulsion. So I came up with a few different designs of machines that would be I thought would be good for moving an experimental vehicle or whatever. Anyway, so I made this a few years ago. This has got these steel toruses here. It's basically just an unbalanced rotor, and I put this on the back of my bike to try to propel it. And I had a drive belt here and a motor. And what I succeeded in doing was creating a good vibrational or vibrator. Just made my bike kind of lurch back and forth. I later took it off my bike and put it on a model car that I made. So this would sit on the back, and then this was driven by a belt and a motor. And I got it to move across the kitchen floor, and it was just on casters, so there was no connection to the wheels or anything, no transmission or gears or anything. So it kind of worked, although it's not the most efficient kind of design, but it was interesting. And then I made this one a few years ago. This I succeeded in moving I put it in a plastic bucket, stuck it in the bathtub, got it to move. This one here just has a couple of magnets they repel each other, and so as they get to this point they kind of push away, and then there would be a sudden acceleration, and the motor would just drive it around and around and around. So there'd be like this asymmetric acceleration going on, a slowdown here, and then it would kind of shoot out quickly that way, and the magnets would create an imbalance. Interesting. And then this one here, I also made a few years ago. This was a pneumatic device, or the idea was that I'd put compressed air in here, and the compressed air would go into these cavities here, which were designed to this sort of like, depending on the position, the air would be able to flow from in here through this little channel. There's a little channel in here, and then it would come out here and be like a jet. So they would create this sort of a motion here, back and forth like that, driven by air jets out here. So that way I'm separating the motor, the aspect of the motor driving it to avoid backwards motion. It's been a few years since I've thought about this, so I'm a little rusty with it, but the idea was that this would be able to propel a spaceship or something in space, because the air jets coming out here would move this back and forth. So anyway, just thought I'd share that before I don't know, throw these out or whatever. So this device here I made probably over a decade ago. This is an electrolyzer, which I designed to put in cars and provide the hydroxy gas, or the H2O2, also known as Brown's gas in the or HHO gas in the fringe community, or whatever you call it. So I made this out of these are stainless steel wall plates, and the two electrodes would attach here and here, and I'd put water with baking soda in there. So it made a nice seal in these enclosures. And the gas comes out here, and they'll just go right into the air intake manifold of the car. In one test, I had a mechanic test the output on the tailpipe running one of these things, and he was just amazed at how much the pollutants were just eliminated. Like I think he said the NO, or the nitric oxide, I think, was way down, and the engine ran smoother and quieter, and so it seemed to have a number of benefits, which is pretty well known in that community of experimenters. Not so sure if it's a big deal nowadays, but it seemed like in the early 2000s it was a real big thing, putting these electrolyzers in cars and getting better gas mileage and that kind of thing. But I guess the sensors and the OBD systems on the new cars are really tough to deal with, the programming. The issues with this would just get pretty hot, and the water would boil in there from so much current flow. But anyway, with more development, it probably could have worked out as a pretty good system. This is an unfinished water wheel generator. So I didn't finish it, but this is where the magnets would go in all these holes. And this thing would, of course, turn, and the water passing over these. This thing here, this was the first Tesla coil I ever made about 30 years ago. It's, well, the windings in there, made it on a lathe, and it doesn't work right now. This is the original board I used, and this Slayer exciter I made about a year ago, but this is the original coil. And I'm going to have to make some new ones, because it's pretty common now with the Graviflyer experiments. Everybody's working on that. So, and there's lots more to explore with the high voltage AC. This right here, this model, was my attempt at making John Bedini's 1984 motor generator. I've dismantled it, but there was a DC motor here, and it would spin this flywheel like this. I think this is the one, actually. And the magnets were in here, little barrel magnets, like that. It would spin around really well, and it would, I had it charging up a big electrolytic capacitor, like this one here. So the whole thing worked pretty well, actually. Meaning it would generate electricity out here with very little influence on the prime mover, which is the basic idea of making an overunity generator. This is another prototype hand electric generator I came up with. And these motors here are from microwave ovens. They're those 3 RPM ones that turn the plate at the bottom. But if you turn them a little bit, they generate a nice, 100 volts or more. That'll give you a little bit of a buzz if you turn the shaft. So with twisting this thing, what happens is these arms here, which you can't see very well on the camera, but these plastic arms would have weights on the end, and they'd swing out. Of course, this doesn't work very well because there's a lot of resistance on these motors, but the idea is that they'd swing out with centrifugal force and generate some electricity. So just by twisting it like that, I could theoretically generate some electricity. This right here I made years ago. This was my attempt at making a chrome regenerator, which has been since disassembled by one of my kids. But so I don't know, just the base would just sit in here and rotate, and I had the magnets set up. It would rotate between the magnetic circuits, making and breaking them. So the inventor claimed a overunity output versus input, and it was pretty popular in the John Bedini experimenter circles for a while, maybe still is. Down here, this is my, what I call an X motor I made a few years ago. It's a pulse motor. The magnets pass by these coils, and then these trigger a magnetic sensor, so it's position dependent. Then it would just pulse. I have a video about this actually. It's called the X motor. YouTube doesn't like it, so it doesn't promote it very much, but I thought it was one of my better videos. And this thing really impressed me actually with its operation. For like a one-off motor, an experimental motor, ran off a couple of batteries and charged a couple more batteries while it ran. And this is the other version of the same motor. I just called it the X motor because, well, there's an X in there. And these magnets pass by the coils kind of in an unusual way. See, the flux comes through here, and then but the magnets are actually, the polarization goes this way. So it creates more of a torque rather than just pushing against that way. It generates a torque. Because these coils are the primary coils, so the wire's thicker, it draws more current. These coils have thinner wire. Do the secondary coils from transformers, so they draw a lot less current. So I found this one used way less power on the input. This here is the first 3D printer I got in a kit form in 2015. It was like a cheap one from China, and I barely figured out how to work it. It was a real pain in the butt, and to this day it doesn't work. But I got it to do a few things back in the day. But it was a learning experience. Kind of like you get what you pay for. And in 2015, a $200-something printer was amazing. Here's one of those ones where I thought should have worked, but didn't seem to. This was a design I came up with to try to enhance the T.T. Brown's electrokinetic apparatus, so that the high voltage would go across these two wires, one being insulated to reduce the ionization, or the leakage, or to prevent arcing. So there might be some potential with this sort of approach, but I didn't see anything that I recall. This was a few years ago, so a little rusty. I'm a little rusty on it. Here's another asymmetric type capacitor thing I made, and you can see the The workmanship is astoundingly fantastic, right? But it actually seemed to work, if I recall. So here is a very thin wire on this side, and the thicker wire on this side, the insulation. Yeah, if I recall right, it did seem to produce a little bit of thrust. So this here I made probably 7 years ago on that cheap 3D printer I was telling you about. This was a more successful print I did. But this was a design I came up with to make an inertial propulsion device, which I thought at the time would work to produce unidirectional force. So the weights would slide through here, being just like roller wheels. So this thing would spin around and create it was like an off-center kind of spin. So the wheels would be pushed in on one side and allowed to extend outward on another side to produce an asymmetrical force. Well, I hope some of you found that interesting. I just thought I'd share a few of those old projects I've worked on and some of my old inventions and stuff. To this day are incomplete, inconclusive, some of them. So more work needs to be done on them. But I got to go through it all anyways. So one last thing, if anything that I've shared with you, if it triggers or inspires you in a positive way, just let me know in the comments. If it's something you think I should pursue more in the future, or something you'd like to see more of, just let me know. No guarantees I'll be able to actually do anything, but the more I'm aware of that, the better I can tune the content I make to serve you guys better. And I will mention I have a crate of those stupid wall plates, like a lot of them. And so I was thinking about making another big electrolyzer, so I don't know, maybe I'll do that, get around to doing that, and try running it off of an earth battery or something and seeing if I can get some passive hydrogen oxygen gas or electrolysis from an earth battery. But that's just one idea of many. Feel free to let me know what you guys are thinking too. Thanks.